Hello, welcome to this short video on how to add your own maps to TrailTracker. Most of the functions of the app are fairly straightforward, as I tried to demonstrate in the preview video on iTunes Preview. But adding your own maps is a little bit tricky, so I'm going to take you through the process, and hopefully by the end you'll be able to do any map that you want to add to the app. So in order to add a new trail map to TrailTracker, what you need is three different things. First, you need a digital copy of the map that you want to add. Then you need the latitude and the longitude of three identifiable points on the boundary of the map. Specifically, you need the northwest corner of the map, you need the most easterly point on the map, and you need the most southerly point on the map. You may have to crop your map so that the boundary goes through those points, because basically those are used to tie the map which you've got in a kind of a paper or digital form into the real world. And the last thing you need is the angle between the map's orientation on its page and true north, because most maps are oriented more or less so that their boundaries are parallel to the borders of the page, and that will often mean that the north direction is offset. So you need to be able to figure out that difference, and what I'm going to do is basically take you through that process of finding these three different things that you need, and then show you how to add them to TrailTracker using the Add Your Map function. Okay, so the first step is to get your actual map into a digital form. Now, you can do that either by downloading it from whatever the source of the map was, or you could take a paper map and you could scan it. You can even take a photo of the map with your camera on your phone, but that tends to make the job of getting a very even straight copy of it a little bit tricky. So I'd recommend one of the first two methods. So what I'm going to do is show you how I went about preparing the demo map that's actually comes with the app. And so this is the Durham Forest map. Now this is the format that it came in when I downloaded it from the website of the authors of the map, and it was actually a PDF file which I first of all converted into a PNG file. Ultimately, it has to be saved as a JPEG to be loaded onto TrailTracker, but you can work with whatever form you have and with whatever editor of graphic editor that you have. In this case, I'm using the paint.net program that's free to use. It's a enhanced version, I suppose, of the Paint program that comes with Windows. It has many more functions, a lot more useful. So you can see that this is kind of it's a map that has all of the legend information. It has the title and so forth, and the actual area of the trails is within that overall frame. In order to put it into TrailTracker, what you have to do is you have to identify those 3 points that I mentioned, and they have to be on the boundaries of the map. So what we really have to do is we have to crop it to fit with, so that it fits exactly, the frame becomes the boundary. So what I can do is with this is just basically create a rectangular boundary around it, and then crop it. I may need to do this a couple of times to get it perfectly set up. And one of the things is that if you look at this particular map, you'll see that the northern road here is actually angling slightly up to the northeast. And so, well, I need the northwest corner of the map. If I pick this exact point here, which is the boundary of the trail area, I'm actually going to crop off part of the area. And so what I actually did, I chose to use this corner here and sort of extend a little bit beyond the boundary of the trail area so that I could find an identifiable point which would allow me to create a frame that included all of that northern edge. So I started from here and I extend my cropping area down here, and the most southerly point is actually this tip of this grey area, the left side of that, and the most easterly point happens to be the end of that road there that you can see. It says Houston Road there. So basically, to get my boundary correct, I put it so that it lines up there with the Houston Road, and also it lines up with my southern tip of the area there. So just a tiny bit tricky. Okay, so that's close enough for a demo, shall we say. So now I can basically just crop that image. And so now I've got the actual trail area and the 3 points that I'm interested in are right now basically on the boundary. So what I would do next is I would save that file as a JPEG. I'll call it Durham Forest 2, I think, and just so it doesn't overwrite my other version. So anyway, this is you know, kind of generic in the sense that you may not be using the same editor, but you will need to use the same process. It's asking me what level of quality I want, so I'll have the high quality. So now I've saved that map, and it is actually in a form that is ready to be integrated, brought into the TrailTracker. Now, just to be able to try to illustrate for you what I next need to do, I'm going to just circle the points that I've got to go back and obtain the coordinates for. So the first one is this corner here, the northwest corner. And I guess I should probably have done that before I cropped it. Anyway, so I need just to highlight those just briefly. So you can see now, those are the 3 areas that I've circled, but sort of in red there, that I now need to get coordinates for. So the easiest way to do that, I found, is to use, well, you could either go to the field with either an app on your phone and just basically shoot those coordinates, record them at those 3 points, or you can use Google Earth. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring up Google Earth, and here's the same basic area. Now, just a point here is that if you look at the way the roads are oriented on Google Earth, with actually this map is oriented, you know, exactly so that north is up and down the screen. You'll notice that there's a difference between this and the paper or the digital version of the map. You can see here that on Google Earth, the roads are actually offset, heading in a kind of a southeast to northwest at an angle of, you know, maybe 10 or 15 degrees, and so the north actually is offset as on this map, as you can see in the legend there. So this is the angle that we're going to have to figure out eventually, so that we can get our digital map properly oriented for TrailTracker to use the location information. So going back then to Google Earth, what you can see here is that I've put some pins on here, and I've kind of jumped ahead a little on the process just to make it so we don't take all day to get through this video. But initially I thought that I'd be able to use that corner here of the actual trail area as my northwest point, but then, as I explained, that cuts off the edge of the map, so I moved it out to the point that I cropped to, which I call here DFNW outer. So what I did when I came to this, you know, Google Earth area, I identified that point as being the same one that I cropped to. I put my pin here. Now, when you do that, what happens is that if you look at the properties for the pin, it gives you the latitude and longitude to 6 decimal places, exactly what you need for defining that boundary point. So basically that's how I go about getting the 3 points that I need. I put a pin in the location. So here is the eastern one, and if I open its properties again, you can see that it's got the latitude and longitude that I need. And similarly for the southern point here, Durham Forest most southerly point, I placed a pin there. I can get the properties, and again I have the longitude and latitude that I need for the. So with this process, basically I go put the pins, and then I record those 3 sets of coordinates. I basically put them into a sticky note here. You can see Durham Forest northwest outer point, Durham Forest southeast point, and the most southerly point. So here I've recorded my coordinates so that I can then add them into the TrailTracker app as I need to. Now, the next step is to figure out this angle, this offset angle. And you can do it using Google Earth and your digital map. You basically take a screenshot of the Google Earth area and then bring that into the graphics editor that we're using, this one here, and you can in this graphics editor you can put you can change the transparency of the layers, so you can kind of overlay the 2 things. You can adjust them so that the features align, and then you can kind of work from that to calculate the angle. But in fact, I found it a lot easier to do it using hard copies. So I'm going to stop this part of the recording, and I'm going to use a different camera to show you how I did that using the hard copies. So we'll continue in a moment. So welcome back. This is the step of trying to calculate the angle offset between the map's orientation and true north. Now, didn't actually mention why we need true north before. It's because the longitude and latitude coordinates are referenced to true north. So you have to establish that relationship so that when you get the latitude and longitude of your position from your phone, that correction has to be made so that it shows you ultimately in the right position. If you didn't make it, then your position won't be correct when it is shown in the app over your map that you've installed. So here we have a sort of the hard copy, old-fashioned way of doing things, but as I said earlier, I found that it was a little easier to do it this way than doing it digitally. Now, of course, the easiest way that you could do it would be to actually ask the people who produce the map for the information. They might have the actual numbers that you need already, but if you don't have that available to you, then this is one of the ways you can actually calculate it. So what I did was, I started by printing out a copy of the actual map, the digital map that we were working with just a little while ago, and it doesn't really matter what scale you use. So I just printed it on a regular page, and then I happened to have a topo map of the same area, and the topo map, it has a grid on it, but that is the grid which is used for the northings and eastings, and it is actually not the same reference as the longitude and latitude are. So that's not what you're looking to use here. If you look over here on this map, you can see that there's actually a little key, and it shows you, first of all, where magnetic north is. It shows you, secondly, where true north is, and thirdly, it shows you actually where the grid north is. So they're all different. And one of the other little complications is that the angle between magnetic north and true north actually changes slowly over time. In this case, it's about 10 seconds a year. Now, that's not significant if you're just going from one year to another, but this map was actually made back in 1988, so there is a little bit of time has elapsed since it was made, and so we've got a little bit of a change which should be taken into account as well. Anyway, what I did was I took my paper copy of the map and I oriented it so that the road, which forms the boundary, is aligned to the road, the same road, on the topo map. And I taped that over the top of the topo map. Then I used the information here on where true north is, and I transposed it over into the same location, over to my paper copy of my map. And basically this line here is that transposition. So here's where true north lies on my actual map that I'm interested in. And as I said earlier, what we find usually is that sort of the main features on the map are made parallel to the borders of the map. So it's basically the road is kind of a proxy for the edge of the map, and if we get the angle between that and the true north line, then we've basically got the correction that we're looking for. So as I say, I transpose the true north line. I have the line which is basically parallel to the edge of here, and so all I need is to calculate this angle. And what I did was just some simple trigonometry. I created a right angle triangle here, measured the sides, the opposite and the adjacent, and then used the tangent of the angle, which is opposite over adjacent, to calculate that angle. And I ended up with 17.74 degrees in this case. And to put it into TrailTracker, you have to convert it into radians. So you basically have to divide by pi, which is 3.14159, say, to the level of accuracy that we need here. So essentially that's the process. And again, you could do it digitally, but to do it manually, it was just a little bit more straightforward, I found. Okay, so that's that step. So I'm now going to go on and just show you how now we enter the information that we've collected into the app so that we can get it in there and use it. So here we have the final step of the process. You can see on the right hand side those are the information that we've collected, the coordinates and the offset angle, and on the left is the phone with the opening page of the app. I'm just going to zoom in there so you can see closer Okay, so you can see there that under the second section of the table it says add and delete maps, and the first item is add your own map. So this is where we go to do that. And what we get is a screen where we can enter the data that we've collected and name the map and so on. So the first thing that it does is we put in the name. Now I've already got the Durham Forest in there, so I'm just going to call it something like new map, just to save confusion. Who is the source of the map? I think it's important to put that in because there's a little acknowledgement comes up, and the authors of the map get a little nod for having provided it. So in this case it's actually Conservation Authority. Its initials are LSRCA, Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority. Okay, so then we move on to put in the coordinates, the latitude and the longitude that we had there. So I'm reading from the page. I can see it's 44.058.242 for the latitude, and minus 79.100563 for the longitude. Now it's negative because we're west of the central meridian that goes through Greenwich there or whatever in England. I'm just going to pause now the video for a second and put the rest of these coordinates in, save a little time. Okay, so I've put the coordinates in there and also the offset angle. And the final thing then is to actually add the image of the map. So what you have to do is you have to transfer your cropped digital image of the map onto your photo stream. In other words, you make sure that it's available through the cloud to all of your devices. So if you created it on your computer, then you just make sure it goes up, that computer has the iCloud activated and you transfer it over to your photo stream. So then you just tap the button here, pick map image, and it'll take you to your various photo directories. So here's photo stream, and in this case I didn't reload the map because I've already got it in here, and I'm just going to go look for it. There it is. So it's basically brought that into the app, and now when you tap to continue, it simply puts the various pieces of information in the right place and tells you, great, you've finished. So now it'll switch back here, and we should see that we now have a new map in our in our app, and if we tap on there, it just gives us the detail of that map. So you can see it's basically the same as the one that we cropped earlier on. So that's the process. It's a little bit convoluted, but you know, for the person who has the technical ability to do it, it's relatively straightforward. For people who aren't that technically oriented, then they can basically take advantage of downloading maps from the database of maps that goes with the app. And so hopefully those of you who are adding your own maps will share them with the rest of the users, and gradually we'll build up a nice collection of trail maps, hopefully in all kinds of different parts of the world. So thanks for watching, and hope you will enjoy using the app and tracking yourself along the trails that you in your area.